And welcome in, everybody, to SEC Football and Beyond. Chris Landry with Neil McCready. Bear down, Neil McCready. Bear down, Chicago Bears. Got a lot to talk about tonight. The big Bears fan is.
Did something even happen last night? All I heard was the Bears got a quarterback, and then Aaron Rodgers went to Jeopardy. Green Bay sucks now. The Bears got a quarterback, and supposedly some other things happened. But all I heard was Bears got quarterback, and after that, it was just sort of white noise. You know what I mean?
It didn't. I'm gonna be a real jerk because I'm tired and I have no sleep. So compare this excitement to when they got Mitchell Trubisky. I want compare that night, not now. Not your thoughts now, but
this is I can do it. This is the polar opposite of that night where when they took Trubisky, you're like, no, you're overthinking it. You're overthinking it. And today it's instead of overthinking it, we didn't overthink it. We completely said, oh, wow. I think you and I talked about this on Tuesday. If Fields is sitting there, go get him.
Yeah.
Go get him. And as he kept falling, I said, boy, this is kind of that moment. And kept waiting, starting at Philly. And then when Philly took Devontae Smith, when they traded up to take Smith, I thought if I'm the Bears, I'm going after the Giants hard right here. And then it pops up in the bottom of my screen, Bears on the clock. And I went, oh, my God, we got our guy.
Yeah, and, look, I'm not people who listened to the draft show last night and go through all the machinations. I'm not, that everybody's great. Like you hear on TV, everybody's pick is every. I'm not that guy. So I'm not taking up. Look, they missed on Trubisky. Get on the horse. Go find your quarterback. People laugh what they've tried to sign. Dalton was a guy in insurance. He's a, starter/backup who, because you don't know what's going to happen in the draft. You don't know that Justin Fields not going to be taken 2, 3, or 4. You don't know that. Go and get your guy. And we have talked about this quite a bit, that the price, the cost of doing business, of paying a quarterback as a rookie, it's a lot. It is a fraction of what, you did in the Sam Bradford days. And we was the last bonus baby. I'm not picking on Sam. But so go and get one. Go and try again. And they're in a position. They don't have time to wait. And you know what they did? Perhaps they probably bought themselves some time. If they're smart. If there's not a collapse or a complete dysfunctional look to them, they've got a young quarterback that can sell the futures good, and now let's see what they can do with the rest of the roster. And let's remind folks, and I said this, this team made the playoffs. This team did some good things, and maybe I think they've got themselves a quarterback of the future that can be dynamic and a guy that has a good reputation with quarterbacks. And look, Ryan Pace, they missed it. They missed it on Trubisky. There's no question. And they can't miss it here, and they can't botch things. You lose your job. I get it. No problem with that. We're all big boys. But I said this is fixable, and this is a little bit of a sign of it's a jolt of medicine. It's a positive sign. So I'm happy for them that they were able to get it. And I'm happy for Justin because good quarterback coach, good situation.
It's a great fit for him. It's a great fit for him. They paid a big price. They gave up next year's one. They gave up some picks, but you've talked about this. You've said it consistently, and other people who really understand the NFL have said it consistently. When the quarterback that you believe in is there, it's a quarterback league, and if you don't have one, you know the rest.
You're compelled to find one.
And so they found him, and they went and got him, and it's amazing kind of to watch the Bears fan base in just one moment.
Oh,
Bears fan base goes from we're screwed to here we go.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, bleep you, Whitty need Russell Wilson anyway. Bleep you, stay your ass and eat salmon on the north. I mean, I get
you don't think they're going to sell some jerseys, do you?
Oh, yeah, I think so. And you know what? Good job by them coming out last night. Because, that's the the post-draft press conferences. Who's your starting quarterback? Hey, Andy Dalton's our starting quarterback. That's the way you do it. Let the young guy win it. Now, the guy who's probably not real thrilled is Andy. I mean, he'll get his money, but now he can be the bridge guy, and he's a guy that's going to mean a whole lot. Well, it is SEC and beyond. On an SEC note, the SEC had 6 first-round draft picks last night. Alabama had 6. So that's a total of 12. It's what a run. Just the Leatherwood one. I talked about it last night. That was one that was a little high in my mind. Some people thought Barmore, and I know we talk about a bunch, but last night 4 hours and almost 5 hours. I got a lot of things I brought up there. So I talked about the concerns with Barmore that because a lot of the Alabama fans were pulling for another guy to tie Miami's 2004 class of number of first rounders. As if Bama needs more records. Barmore was a hard guy to coach. I mean, he was. The bull and the whip and all that. No defensive tackle's gone off. I'm not. He's gonna go pretty high tonight, I would think. But that's a buyer beware. Get my money, and I'll play when I want to. Risk there with him. Yeah. Look, he played 40% of the snaps there, and this wasn't one of the typical Bama guys that they couldn't reach him like they could reach others. They got out of him, but he, a good bit. But so we'll see, and hopefully, look, I always have a little bit of optimism. Maybe he'll realize that, okay, I'm getting paid. I got to play hard, and if I'm going to earn my second contract, I better ball out now, maybe. But it was the other thing is just how everybody kept. What's your biggest in the chat room, man? I got to thank everybody because I know a lot of them are probably, fans of your program and your work, and just so many people. And then I apologize, I couldn't even come close to keeping up with answering the chats. I mean, I didn't, it just, I'm doing it by myself. Scott Seidenberg joined me, another host joined me early, just to kind of pop in. He's a Jets fan. But I had time to go, and it was a different type of show. But what is surprised? Really, when you talk about board pick clean, first rounders, only 3 of my first rounders are left, and there's
who's left?
Trevon Moehrig of TCU, first round grades I'm top on. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah of Notre Dame, and Elise Ojulari from Georgia. Those are 3 first round grades that I think are going to go really high, and all of the other guys were just like high second-round value, which, again, we've explained time and time again that you don't have 32 first-round grades, so high second round. I didn't really see the big reaches. I do think a couple of things. Leatherwood with the Raiders. Look, I like Leatherwood. I have no doubt in my mind that you bookend him with Colton Miller, and maybe they've got something there. I think Tevin Jenkins was a little bit better. I thought there were some better options. There was a lot of consternation for Saints fans with the pick of Peyton Turner. That was maybe, again, another name that people are not as familiar with out there in the draft world. And I didn't have him ranked quite that high because of production. He is Marcus Davenport all over again. He is long-levered, long-limb, great athlete, and they tend to do that. The GM there, Jeff Ireland, is a good young guy. I knew his granddad real well, but I think real quick. I'm not going to go into stories today, but his granddad, you'd be interested. Jeff Ireland, the GM of the Saints. He knew him, young guy. Took him on the road with me. First 4 or 5 years, we were on the road a bunch together. I was real good friends with Jeff was a field goal kicker at Baylor back in the day. His grandfather was a good friend of mine, a guy by the name of Jim Palmer, not Palmer, Palmer, and he was a great bear scout. And he was with Bill Tobin, Jim Finks, and they built, from the 75 to 85 that big. And so that was his granddad. And that's what he wanted. He was a kicker, but he wanted to get into football and always teased him. So you didn't play football, but you wanted so I always teased, you damn. But so I remember his granddad saying to me, man, my grandson, and you help him, can you would you guys look at him? I was at LSU at the time. And would you guys look at him? He's really good. And I said, yeah, he's really good. We don't have a place for him. We had Brown Dyke at the time, who was also a Texas kicker, but ended up going to Texas. But Jeff has done a really good job. But he's a guy that's big on athlete. Sean Payton is a lot of will take guys, really good athletes. So it's a risky pick with Turner. Now people say, oh, he could have got him later. No, he couldn't. He was going really high tonight. So he's just a workout warrior that doesn't have the production behind him, so it's a little bit of hit and miss. But he can be a good edge rusher. They lost Trey Hendrickson. There's a bunch of needs. The Saints needed a corner. Man, the corners went up really big. How about Philadelphia moving up ahead of the Giants, and then basically two corners going right in front of Dallas? And by the way, good job by the Cowboys not panicking. They wanted a corner, I know. They moved down and picked up a third-round pick and got Michael Parsons, from their trade-down spot. So I really, I'm happy because I get a little agitated when I feel like, man, I don't know what they're doing there. I really like what they've done thus far. Now, stay tuned tonight. We'll be doing the show tonight and tomorrow. It's going to be all across the board. And they'll be bitching galore because most people are not going to know half these players. And they're going to say, oh, what? I never heard of this guy. Well, we'll walk you through it. But this was a lot of fun.
So let me get to some questions. There's some people have questions in the thread, and I'll kind of tie them into my questions a little bit. Obviously, we talked about this on Tuesday. The draft was going to start at number 3, and it did. The Niners went with Trey Lance, the quarterback from North Dakota State. Grind here says they did the right thing. Rock Westfall says, was that the ultimate proof that Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs live rent-free in the 49ers' heads? What did you ultimately think about Trey Lance going 3rd?
They liked him a lot, and, one of the things we talked about was they moved up. They liked, at least 3 guys when they moved up to 3. They like Lance, they like Jones, and they certainly like Wilson, and they like Lawrence, and so they knew they were going to get one. But pretty early on, they identified Lance, and the biggest thing was about, I can't put exact time on it, but I'm going to say about a month ago when they really had the meeting with him. They said he was phenomenal on the board. Now, he's definitely a project. We've talked about it. He doesn't have hardly any starts at quarterback.
But they still have Garoppolo, so they have some time.
They do, and they've got him for costly, but they got this guy on a rookie contract. Now, what do they do? Would they? I don't think they want to with their team. I don't think it's the best thing for this year, as people will say Garoppolo should be traded. I don't rule anything out if I get a really good deal for a team that doesn't get their quarterback in the draft. There may be interest, but I'm inclined to say that it makes more sense to have Garoppolo there and let it fight it out, and then just kind of go with. I think we know who they drafted for their future, but they like not only the physical skill set, but what they like about the guy is the intangibles, the leadership qualities. They thought he was brilliant. They thought he was really, really smart on the board. So, look, it was one of those things that that they knew for some time, and they loved the fact that it was going one way. And I said, I don't know. I just will say this, and just file this away, folks. But they had all the rumors they let out there that they wanted Trubisky. The Niners, Trubisky. This almost
years ago.
Yeah. In the draft, and that was, and so what you hear, and we'll remind that all the time. What you hear.
There's a new era in Chicago now.
Yeah, no. This is not about Chicago. It's about believe what you want. Believe what you want. Oh, it's a 70%. It was. It was not anything against Mac Jones. It was
Yeah.
Lance. It
Yeah.
was Lance for a long time. No, they didn't take it down the road, but they played it. They played it. Here's the thing. They didn't even tell their scouts. Their scouts didn't know. Only Kyle knew.
The kid didn't know.
Well, that's not that unusual. I mean, they sometimes will call the night before. No, he said 2 minutes before, and they didn't want to because the league kind of got on them about, let's have a little drama. And if you tell the league and then the agent tells and all of a sudden it's out there, it's going to be Lance. They didn't want that, so they didn't. But, in the organization, that's interesting is the scouts didn't know. So Kyle knew, John Lynch knew. I believe Adam Peters would have known. He's the assistant GM. And I'm assuming if he wanted to know, Jed York was in on it. I mean, at least knew about it, the owner. So, that's that. So yeah, listen, it's interesting, and look, I know Bill's really happy. Belichick's really happy with Mac at New England, and it's a good fit for him.
Good fit.
I think Mac would have done well with Kyle. He'll do well with Bill. Being in good situations are really important, and so that's what I'm hoping. And I'm hoping, the one that I'm most concerned about, that I'm hopeful works out, and I love the early culture there. I'm hoping that that the Jets can do a much better job with Zach Wilson than they were able to do in the previous regime with Sam Darnold, because I want these guys to be successful.
That Zach Wilson, give the guy credit now. Let's all just put our egos aside and give the guy credit. I mean, my wife knows nothing about football, and she saw Zach Wilson walking down. She said, "Who is that?" yeah, Zach Wilson looks good in a suit. Let's give the guy credit. He looks like a model. He's got a chance, if his career goes well, to make a ton of endorsement money there in New York.
Yeah, you think in New York with a with the locks? Yeah, you think he's got a chance of doing that, huh?
Yeah, he rocked the suit quite well. I'll give the guy credit. All right, so here's the first pick that I was like, whoa. I love J.C. Horn, love him, but I was kind of surprised to see him go 8. I thought he'd go 11, 12, somewhere in there. Obviously, we had a run on the corners, like you mentioned. Horn goes 8 to Carolina. Surtain goes 9 to Denver. Newsome ended up going, I think, a little earlier than maybe some people thought he would go. Just the run on corners there early. Were you a little surprised when Horn popped at 8?
Not really. Just knowing, and I was mentioning this last night, the difference between Surtain and Horn. Surtain is a little bit more versatile. He can play inside, outside, press man, off man, zone corner, do a lot of things well. Carolina was very, very heavy zone last year. They drafted heavy on defense. By the way, Matt Rule hadn't drafted an offensive guy since he's been in Carolina. It's one full draft and one round, but kind of comical. They wanted a press man corner. They want to play more man. That's one. He's an outside corner that can play press man, turn and run guy. So they, again, fit, style, what you want. Same grade I had Surtain on. Now, they love Surtain in Denver. They like the versatility. That was one of the top 3 players on their board there. They loved him. And so, good fit for him. The guy that I knew would fall a little, I didn't know how much, it was the guy that was it hung the longest, 10th on my board overall, was Caleb Farley. But we kind of talked about that. Coming off the back surgery, that was going to be a medical issue. Who was going to say, look, we're comfortable enough with it, and, at a certain point, it's of value. Well, Tennessee did it, and I think pretty good value there when at 22. Look, if he's healthy, there's not maybe a better on-the-ball corner than this guy. So it's just about health and availability for him. So you're right. Run on corners, early run on receivers. We had, of course, the quarterbacks, and then we started. It was the longest we went without a defensive player, I think, since like 1999. So that's a little ways, But, quarterbacks, we had some receivers, a couple of good linemen. The Chargers got the tackle that they loved in Slater. The
Good pick.
Lions got a really good player in Sewell. So, yeah, really, really excited for most folks here in this draft. I thought the Vikings trading down and getting Darrisaw was really good. The Steelers getting Najee Harris. And then coming right after it, the Jags teaming Travis Etienne with Trevor Lawrence. By the way, this is the first time in the modern era that the same team drafted two players from the same team in the first round. Jags did it, obviously, with Lawrence and Etienne. Long time since a modern era of the draft. So, yeah, it's really a fun night. I thought there was some, like I said, some really good value ahead throughout the first round.
You were asked a question in the thread about Greg Newsome, who went 26th overall, first round to Cleveland, the cornerback from Northwestern. First of all, kudos to Pat Fitzgerald, who's taken Northwestern, and now they have 2 first-round draft picks that go from Northwestern. I don't think too many people saw that coming 15 years ago.
Right. No, absolutely.
What do you think about Newsome's fit there in Cleveland?
Yeah, I think he's really good. I think obviously they'll play him at bookends their corner position. He reminds me a little of Carlton Davis. Remember him coming up a few years ago, 3-year starter there, and he's got good versatility in man and zone. And some of my notes on him, he's primarily an off cover guy. Really does a good job breaking on the ball. Playing the ball as an IMG Academy kid that they got. The guy can run. Most people had him a little bit higher than them. I probably was a little lower on him. I had a good grade on him. But I'm probably, as I looked and studied at it, I thought, he's probably going to go late first round, early second. I think it's really good value. You look at the, as I didn't even check these off. So at the corners, Surtain's gone, Farley's gone, Horn's gone, Stokes is gone. A little bit there. Like Stokes a lot. A little bit spot. Newsome's gone. We've got some really good corners, though, still left. Calvin Joseph of Kentucky's out there. By the way, Kentucky, if you go back like 30, 40 years, Kentucky's had like 3 linebackers drafted. In the last 5 years, they've had 3 linebackers drafted. They have done a really good job. Jamin Davis, they do such a really good job. We talk about that during the season, how well they coach. They're still really good depth and value at corner. And I think a guy that's a big slot, Trevor Morgan, that can play safety, I think he's going to be, I know it today, he's going to be busy with people moving up to try to get this guy top of the second. I think he's first-round value. So, it was
all right, so let me dig on a couple of questions that I have, because there were a couple of things that happened during the draft where I caught myself going, I wonder what Chris thinks about that. And I guess I could have turned your show on, but I was watching multiple things, and
if you had a spare 5 hours, I don't know what the hell you were thinking.
You were really high on Zaven Collins. He goes the Tulsa linebacker goes 16 to Arizona, and then you thought, and you were not alone, by the way. You thought, hey, the Giants typically like bigger bodies. Gettleman likes bigger bodies. He went with a smaller body in Kadarius Toney, the wide receiver from Florida, at 20. I know you weren't surprised to see Collins go there. What did you think New York would do when they traded down with Chicago and they were sitting there at 20 and they had a lot of options? Were you surprised they went smallish receiver?
Well, no, because remember, I think Philly jumped them obviously, because I think that's who they were taking. Remember,
they were going to take Smith.
Yeah, we talked about Devontae with them. I think that was the intel that it probably ticked them off in their draft room. So Philly gets Devontae. So, regroup a little bit, and obviously they went with who they thought was the next best guy, and they got a lot of weapons now for the quarterback. So, there's certainly probably some sentiment knowing Dave. There wasn't great value on defense. I thought maybe it was a little bit high, for them for Kwity Paye. And I thought maybe offensive tackle was a possibility, but knowing receiver, they obviously had a really good rate on Kadarius Toney. Um, so yeah, not really. When you look in context of all right, and this is why mock drafts are kind of foolish because they put that stuff and then but if you're sit there at 13 and then you think this makes sense, well then when that's gone, then where's the regroup? And to me, that's why I do it like doing it on the fly, and we talk about it and give a little feel for it. This is kind of based upon intel, kind of how I think they use players and likes players and how guys would fit. That's when it's really fun to do for me while the draft is going on before the picks are made is, okay, now here's who's there. Because you can sit there and want a guy all you want. He just drafted 3 picks ago. It just doesn't matter.
All right, so right now the Jacksonville Jaguars are on the clock. Round 2 starts tonight at 6. They've got a ton of options. There's still a lot of talent on the board. One of the questions that Grind has for us, he says, is Toney a better pick than Elijah Moore? Why not take Moore? So 2 things. I'll let you answer that question, and then I'll start here. If you're Jacksonville today, you're not ready to contend for anything resembling a title. You got Trevor Lawrence. You've got Travis Etienne. There's a lot of talk in Jacksonville, I've heard locally there, that they're going to spend a lot of focus on this draft in putting offensive targets around Lawrence to make his transition to the NFL a little easier. If you're Jacksonville, are you thinking about Elijah Moore here to start the second round?
Oh, I think you absolutely would. I think weapons around him. I think, but I got to tell you, I'm gonna say, they got a lot of needs.
Yeah.
When you look at, they need some offensive tackle help. Receiver is one of them. Safety's one. They drafted a running back and quarterback.
So not to interrupt you, but they're interesting tonight, obviously, because they're 33rd and then they're sitting there again at 45. So they can have some early impact tonight. They do a couple of things.
5 picks in the top 65.
Yeah.
So and you've alluded to it. So they've got some ammunition, and that's why Urban said we can't screw this up. Look, I don't think they can screw this up. Moore would be a really good pick. Is he a better pick than Trevon Moehrig? I don't know that I can say that. I mean, I think those are what do you want now? You got a big slot that can play deep, and so they're in terms of my grade, I had a high second-round value on Elijah Moore, and I've got a first-round grade on Moore. But, we're not dealing a whole lot of difference. You look at it. You've got a really big-time player in Owasu Koromora. Ojulari's on the board. I mean, you've got to throw that out there as a possibility. It's something that they might look at. But I would say, Tevin Jenkins. Talking about a really good value offensive tackle, man, that would make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're overly, how they feel about the work ethic with a Christian Barmore, but Elijah Moore certainly would be in that mix. But there's a lot of guys, that I think would fit them. I don't think they need to be. They need to be tied to their board and not tied to need because they got a whole lot of them.
Yeah, there is. I'm sitting here looking at just some names that are still out there. There is still a lot of talent out there. I mean, Terrace Marshall is still out there. I know there's a little health concern there, but
yes, that's the reason he slipped, and that's why the Ravens went Bateman. Somebody asked me last night, is Bateman the first? I had a high second-round grade on Bateman, but again, receivers off the board, a little bit more size, like Marshall, than Moore. And that's, again, too, is you're dealing with, so somebody asked me, Toney and Moore, they're both slot guys that can play the Z position. Look, I got the same grade on both. I've got Toney stacked, a little bit above Moore with Terrence Marshall in the middle, and Terrence with a little bit of medical concern by some. So, no, I think Toney. Here's the thing: Kadarius Toney is Deebo Samuel. He's Percy Harvin, Dante Hall. He's got that. Elijah Moore is more Tyler Lockett. a more athletic Cole Beasley, a guy that, it's more like Lockett. He's athletically like Lockett, nifty like Cole Beasley, but more athletic. I mean, outstanding players, starting caliber players, difference-making type players, both of them. So, everybody has their favorites looking at it from a fan's viewpoint, but from a scouting viewpoint, they're very, very similar. Marshall's a different type of guy. He's a Devontae Parker type of guy. You just got to get the clearance medically, and if you're comfortable, he's going to go here. You got Rondale Moore, who reminds me of the Curtis Samuel kid.
From Purdue, the Purdue receiver,
Purdue receiver. I'm sorry, yeah. DJ Moore, DJ Moore type of guy. That type of guy. You got Amari Rodgers out there. That's kind of a Ty Montgomery type of player. That's going to be good value late in this.
I like Tyson Campbell, the corner from Georgia. I've always thought
Tyson Campbell. Yeah. I was just going over receivers now. But
sure.
The corners are really good. Right now. Kelvin Joseph. Kelvin Joseph to me is a Bradley Roby type of guy. Tyson Campbell is a probably a thinner version of Xavier Rhodes, starting caliber corner. Aaron Robinson is a corner from Central Florida, really, really good. Elijah Molden from Washington, Melifanu from Syracuse. You got some. There's value deep into the second and third round. We're going to see quite a run on corners. So a lot of what's going to happen is a little bit of an anticipating, and this is why you have a board, is to try to see, Ben, we're going to have a little bit more of a run, whereas there's a little bit more depth, whereas a little bit more meat on our board so that we can double dip. So they make sure we can address 2 or 3 positions and make sure that you take care of that.
All right. We talked a lot about quarterbacks. Now you get into day 2 of quarterbacks, and you can get some value here. There's more risk. Obviously, there's more downside. There's more upside. I mean, there's not as much upside. There's not, there's no Justin Fields in the second round. There's no Trevor Lawrence in the second round. But here we are. Kyle Trask is out there. He's 23 already, but he did some really good things at Florida the last couple of years. There's a question on the board from Jeffrey Parrott. He says, who do you think the Saints target in the second round? The Saints have been tied to quarterback a little bit in some mock drafts and that kind of thing. So kind of a twofold question. What do you think the Saints are looking here as they move into day 2? And then along those lines, not necessarily tied to the Saints, but Kyle Trask, the kid from Stanford, there's some quarterbacks out there that people like. Where do you think they may go?
I think you'll start to see, for people, you got to look at the people that that are quarterback shopping. I think all these guys, like in the first round, they're going to be overvalued. I think you're leaving, and we talked about some of them in other positions, we're leaving plenty of good players on the board to go and reach with a quarterback that, let me just sum it up by saying none of these guys that we're talking about, none of those guys are going to be starters in the league. So, now the need, you need to add one, like Kyle Trask, not very mobile. Kyle Trask doesn't have a gun for an arm, and I don't know. Again, to me, he's Matt Moore. He's, Brad Johnson. He's and look, Brad Johnson won a Super Bowl with the Bucs. Not, good decision maker. In the right situation, could he start? Yes. I just think he's a guy you look to replace. Davis Mills was a guy that I worry about durability, but he's got a little Matt Ryan, Andy Dalton in him. Maybe you hope more Matt Ryan than Andy physically, but we're talking about the guy that was the number one recruit in the country, Neil. I mean, it was, turned down Alabama, everybody. He hasn't played much football because durability questions. I'm not high on Kellen Mond. Some are. Some will give him a chance. To me, he's Josh Dobbs. He's Tyrod Taylor. He's not, but, somebody, where they're going to go and where I would take them are 2 different answers, guys, on the thread. So, I think that we're going to see some go in the second round and some in the third round. I would take a chance at the right spot down the road on Jamie Newman and hope that I can develop into more of a Jacoby Brissett than a Deshaun Kaiser, because that's who he reminds me of. He physically reminds me of both, but that's kind of how I see the quarterbacks. That well, we're gonna get our quarterback later. He's gonna lead us in it. It's if you're holding out hopes that Kyle Trask is gonna be, because like for example, that's somebody the Bears would have considered probably in the second if they couldn't do this deal, but they're back to not good enough. Still, you know what I mean? As a
Sure.
different very. Now you got a guy that you can build something with and build around and potentially be great. Kyle Trask is not. Could you build a team around him, Kyle Trask, that's really, really good to where he can be functional and he can be successful? Yes. Is he a difference maker in my mind? No.
All right, we've talked about quarterbacks and we've sort of ignored the giant gorilla in the room. Aaron Rodgers was in the news yesterday. The NFL is king at owning a news cycle. No league owns a news cycle like the NFL owns a news cycle. We have this story that's out there that nobody is completely shooting down, and that is Aaron Rodgers is really unhappy and perhaps not completely willing to just walk back to Green Bay and put on his green and gold and head out into Lambeau Field. He's got options. He's getting married to a California girl. He did a audition for Jeopardy to replace the great late Alex Trebek. Listen, there's enough buzz and smoke here to make me go, what's Green Bay going to do? Is there a way that Green Bay makes Aaron Rodgers happy? And let's keep in mind, Chris, Aaron Rodgers is a guy that when he holds a grudge, he holds a grudge.
Yeah, no, he's people may know the story. He doesn't. People may be familiar. I don't know where people remember his brother Jordan at Vanderbilt. I think Jordan does some TV on one of the networks. I think he's
SEC network.
Okay, there you go. I've seen him, and I think he may have been on one of those girly shows with the roses. Where you do the.
He was a bachelor. Come on,
Bachelor. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm not trying to be this man. Look, I'm tired. I did a damn 5-hour show last night. I'm grumpy. I'm a grump. Get off my lawn, Neil. No, I don't know. I know that it's popular. So
he had some of the most dramatic rose ceremonies ever.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, good. Anyway, Aaron doesn't. They don't speak. Aaron doesn't speak with his parents. Look, I don't know. I mean, it's personal business, but it's kind of a little weird. And I remember somebody telling me, and I have no idea that it was one of the actresses. Obviously, he's had some good-looking girlfriends, but they kind of blamed the relationship problem on one of the actresses. But apparently, it's more Aaron than he's a quirky dude. Here's the nutshell, and I went into this in a lot of detail before the draft show because that did take the news away. Why did this come out yesterday? This is not really new news, but it was advanced yesterday. And it was advanced for a reason, and I'll tell you why. So backstory is Aaron is not happy, doesn't like, again, he tends to not like people. He doesn't get along. Mark Murphy's is the president of the Packers. He's a pain in the ass, and he's a little bit of a, whatever. I'll say it, he's a prick too. So you got there we go. Thank you. I'm a little raw this morning. So anyway, so you're dealing with personality conflicts. You're dealing with Aaron Rodgers, who the whole thing. Show players respect. Respect is money. Money's respect. He's not happy that Jared Goff, for example, probably has the same contract he has. He sees all the big money. He's 37. He wants his. Hey, I completely understand that people are tired of players. Oh, they make too much money. They're greedy with it. Hey, they see other guys. He wants his. He's MVP of the league. And so it's gotten contentious. The Packers have tried to redo his deal. He wants an extension. He wants it the way he wants it. And, okay, that's fine. That's a negotiation. The Packers haven't done a good job of getting this done. The bottom line is, get it done. They've kind of screwed this up, and they've made it contentious. So we'll show you. We'll draft Jordan Love last year. So we're going to hedge our bet if something happens, if he starts acting up. We're going to go draft the quarterback that we liked. They didn't just do it. They like Jordan Love, but drafted him last year. A lot of talk. Now, that's a team in Green Bay that's competitive. It's a playoff team. It's elevated highly by Aaron Rodgers. But really improving that defense, getting more weapons. You know what? You look at what Tampa did and what Green Bay's done. that could have been Green Bay, the last, what Tampa did this year with better organization management, that could have been Green Bay. That hadn't been the case. So it's gotten contentious. And to the point where they have not they've not advanced the negotiations to the point. So David Dunn, the agent, says, well, we'll do this. We'll drop this in your lap on draft day and try to, now it makes you I'm not playing for Green Bay anymore. So it puts a little bit of a pressure to get the deal done, to get an extension done. And it didn't work, but maybe force a potential trade, which, quite frankly, that could have been done a few weeks ago if they wanted to trade. Green Bay is not interested in trading him. There was all sorts of rumors that came out. People were right. Oh, man, we're reading on the internet that Denver's getting ready to do a deal. I texted George Payton in the Broncos office. They didn't even call him. They were not even in negotiations. I don't know, Neil. I don't know how this stuff comes out sometimes. It's a deal is all but done for a trade with Denver. Denver hadn't even talked to him. No, none at all. So it's just I don't know what the heck people go with sometimes. And there wasn't it. There were teams. There were about 5 or 6 teams yesterday afternoon that called Green Bay, and Green Bay said, "Look, no interested in trading him. No interested in trading him at all." Now that could change. So here's where we are. He's got 3 years left on his deal. I think what they're going to do is eventually get the money right, and he's going to be fine. Now, is he going to love the guys? He doesn't like people? No, that's probably Aaron anyway. Gets his money, he's going to be fine. The other option is he doesn't want to play football, and he wants to live in Northern California with his wife, and I don't know if he can get that Jeopardy thing full-time or do something else or do State Farm insurance. I don't know. I mean, it's up to him. He's got enough money, but what's enough? What does he spend? What does he save? What does he want to do? Those things, that's where it is. But the whole dropping of it yesterday was a concerted effort of, we're going to drop this in the lap, make it a story, kind of embarrass the Packers, and now it puts a whole lot of pressure. Hey, Mark Murphy, fix this. And you know what? I'm not saying I like it, but Mark Murphy's bleeped this up too.
Sure.
And Aaron maybe hasn't handled it. This is where you can't let this thing get out. I don't know if it's so bad that you can't make amends. I just know money has a tendency to fix a lot of things. Make a lot of people happy.
It does.
Turn that frown upside down, Neil. Here's a big check.
It's now another interesting quarterback deal going into the season. Is like, we don't know what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson and the Texans. Now we don't know what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. I mean, he who knows? It's like I said, man. I give the NFL credit. The NFL is king. They did the deal last night. It was great television. You had the drama of a couple of trade-ups, and you had the early drama. Is there something going to happen with Rodgers?
Oh, yeah.
Now, even this weekend, after the draft is over and after we do the who won and who lost and all that stuff, you'll still, starting on Monday, you'll have the talk shows, and they'll be doing the Trevor Lawrence, and we'll do the whole Justin Fields thing and Trey Lance and Mac Jones and all that stuff. And now they'll still have this talking point for months, Chris, about Aaron Rodgers. Can it?
Will he show up?
Will
they give him the money and then that ends it? Then it's not a talking point. If they don't, the storyline is going to be like it was. Well, it was different with Favre because he's retiring, he's unretiring, he's coming. It's going to be the same thing though. Is he going to show up? Is he going to show up? Is he going? And then, so here's the other thing. By stating it, I am done with the Packers. I'm not playing. It puts a little bit of pressure. Because he's told them that. If you're Green Bay, if you believe that, now obviously they don't, and they think he's going to stay, they think they can fix it. But if you believe he is not going to play, and he's got enough money, and he's got the, then you have the situation of, they could have gotten a boatload.
Sure.
People were saying, oh, give them 5 first-round picks. Well, here's it's never been the issue. You can only trade 3 years out, so you can only get first-round picks for 3 years, and you can't. But you could have gotten players. You wonder, would San Francisco have done? Would they? I know they were interested. It never. Now I've heard things like he was disappointed that he didn't take that the Packers didn't take San Francisco's offer. My understanding is it never got to an offer. So I don't know there. That's a. But would I'm sure he'd like to be in Northern California. It's where he's from, and the Niners are really good. I mean, I think that's something that would be, and I think there are a couple of other teams that would fit. But if you're Green Bay and you're going to lose him and get nothing for him, you could have gotten buku picks. You could have said, "What Fred Warner I want: 3 first-round picks, 3 second-round picks. I'll take Garoppolo." You just I'll take a Deebo Samuel. You could have gone down the road and kind of basically said, "And what?" I mean, you talk about just bend over and whatever. It's just. It would have been, and yet now if he walks away, you got nothing. But I think they're banking on that Aaron doesn't want to walk away, and he's not going to walk away from the money. So it's a game of chicken. But you're right, it's going to be a storyline. It's going to be a storyline that is going to be big.
It's a compelling storyline. It's easy talk radio. And what makes it compelling. And we'll move on from it. But what makes it compelling is that unlike a lot of guys who, you go, oh, it's a contract negotiation. This guy can be so petty that it's certainly possible that he just goes, you know what? I told you I wasn't coming back. I meant it.
Yeah, and people tell me.
I think that's likely, but there's enough of a realistic possibility that it is that makes it where you watch it and you go, that's pretty interesting. Green Bay's taking a real chance here.
Yeah, well, and people will, and you hear this. It's really more about the money. It's about respect. Well, my experience in the league is that's how players equate respect, the money that they get. So money and respect are the same thing in their eyes. So in their eyes, it's like in other words, the money that he makes right now probably would be fine if everybody else in the league made less than he did. At quarterback. But the fact that the tide rises all ships, and so now you got Jared Goff with this. Well, he's like, hey, you kidding me? 37. I want mine. I want to be paid this, and I understand that. That's part of it. But you got to deal with it in today's world, and the Packers haven't done a good job of dealing with it. They are not a good team without him.
This podcast. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's it.
Okay. This podcast also brought to you by Blue Sky. Blue Sky believes in being fast, fresh, and friendly. Through the thoughtful layout and cleanliness of their stores, Blue Sky hopes to provide customers with a fast and easy buying experience. From services to products, Blue Sky plans to keep things fresh and always provide the freshest flavors of their brand name products and the best services available. They even bring in some of the newest products on the market, I should say, to their stores to provide an even better customer experience. A smile can say it all, and Blue Sky wants to show their customers that they care about them and the shopping experience. They'll always strive to improve their efforts to accomplish exactly that. So check out Blue Sky today at any one of their 48 store locations across the Southeast. And we're brought to you by our friends at Alpha Specialties, located at 1670 Highway 80 in Pearl, Mississippi. They are your trailer-specific professional. If you want to haul it, they can call it. It's the premium trailer dealership in Mississippi. They've got Load Trail. It's the premium brand trailer, the highest quality utility equipment dump and gooseneck trailers being built today. Fully primed and powder-coated Load Trail trailers come with an industry-leading 3-year warranty and 2 years of roadside assistance. Alpha Specialties also has Hallmark cargo trailers, one of the most quality cargo trailers on the market today. Perfect for hauling goods to markets and shows, ATVs to deer camps, hauling race cars, and more. They can even work with third parties to have game day trailers and concession trailers built just for you. For podcast listeners, Alpha has spare tires and wheels starting at just $100, a full selection of trailer parts and accessories, hitches, winches, straps, and more. They also do all types of truck accessories. Listeners can get 10% off a yearly trailer service and inspection at Alpha's full service shop. They can repair all types of trailers, concession, horse, utility, enclosed, gooseneck, RV, and more. So give them a call at 601-932-9798 or check them out at alphaofms.com. Make sure that you tell Alpha that you heard about them on the MPW Digital network of podcasts, which includes SEC football and beyond.
So just kind of some staggering numbers. The 2017 Alabama recruiting class.
That's crazy.
So I had it last night, but we got to up it. So it was 25%. Now it's more than 25. It's probably, I don't have time to do the math, between 25 and 30% now of that recruiting class were first-round picks. Let me say that again. Not 25, or it's probably, let's say 27.5, 28% were draft picks, were first-round draft picks. That is the definition of, when people say all the time about you got really good developmental programs that, okay, they recruit, certain level guy and they get a lot out of them and they develop them and they're really, really good, but they don't get elite players. And then you got some programs that recruit elite talent, but they don't quite get it done on the field as consistently. And how people say, man, what if you can get the best of both worlds that could recruit at a high level and develop, that you can be the best recruiting program in the country and the best at developing? It's Nick Saban in Alabama. That's what it looks like, and that's why college football it's Alabama's world, and it's we talked about this before. You take Alabama out of the mix, college football is kind of interesting. I mean, it's still chalky, but you still have some conversation. Now, college football is, can anybody beat Alabama? I mean, it's kind of like can anybody beat the Celtics in the 60s? When they went like 9 in a row. Okay, that's the whole storyline. Can anybody do that? That's it right now. That's how dominant it is.
Yeah, the stat yesterday about more first-round draft choices than losses.
Yes.
I mean,
yeah, no, he's got 23 losses and now 36 first-round draft picks.
It's insane.
And you know what? You go back and look at it. You think, wow. And you got to look at that first year. That's where the losses are. Because if you go, all right, you say, all right, 14 years, 28 would be 2 a year. You had 23, so you're dealing 1 point something. But you go to that first year, which is a big transition. I can't remember how many he lost.
He lost 6.
He lost 6 that first year.
Yep.
So if you just, you can't take that out. That happened, that is. But if you think about it, from there, I mean, you got less than a loss a year. Because you think about it, but we forget, some of those titles he won was with one loss. But you tend to forget about the loss because you win the national title. Who cares? But there's just not many losses. And outside of that first year when they lost to, who did Alabama? I'm just being a smart ass. Who did Alabama lose to that first year? That's the only team that's not ranked that beat them. Neil, help me with that. Help me with
14 ULM, big boy.
That's right. The ULM.
Oh.
That's the only non-ranked team that's ever beaten them. And then that was that first year where he's kind of putting the
Chris, I'm intimately familiar with that first year.
I know. That's why I brought you. I said I want to make
sure
I'm
that I'm here right now. I'm very familiar with what happened in year one.
Another thing, I want to hear your thought, but so preparing for the draft, I didn't have a lot of time, but I get a call and then I followed up, and there's some. What's your thoughts on it? There's some people on that staff at Ole Miss not real happy about some stuff that went on this week. So we hadn't had a chance to talk about it off the air. I can and I will, but I want your thoughts. Obviously, Ole Miss,
they're not happy with me, I don't think.
I haven't had a chance to hear it. I've been busy, but they are not. I'll say they're not. There's some people on that staff not happy about what went down. But I lean the floor to you on some drama in the Grove.
Yeah, there's definitely drama. So I guess it was Tuesday the news broke that Lane Kiffin had fired Randy Clements, the offensive line coach. I started to say offensive coordinator because he's sort of tied to the hip to the offensive coordinator, Jeff Lebby, who has recently agreed to, like Clements, they'd signed new deals to go into year 2 under Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. And obviously firing your offensive line coach the Tuesday after the spring game is nonsensical. It's revelatory of something emotional, of something happening inside the building, of something building to something, because the natural times to fire an offensive line coach, right, Chris, are after a season or immediately after signing day, where you screw the kids. And that's what happens in college coaching. Usually more the first than the latter, but usually at the end of a season, hey, a year didn't go real well. We're going to redo our staff. We're going to revamp some coaches. And that you see an offensive line coach fired on the Tuesday after the season finale, and you're like, yeah, But the Tuesday after spring football, you go, whoa, what's up here? And it's sort of revelatory of there's some fractiousness, I think is the better word, inside that staff. I don't think it's a secret that Lane Kiffin and Jeff Lebby don't always see eye to eye. I think it's obviously revelatory of Randy Clement and Lane Kiffin were not fond of one another. I think Clement does not particularly like Kiffin's coaching style. Clement was not happy about some of the recruiting decisions that were being made inside the program. He was not particularly fond of who was making the way that the decisions were made. The fact that Kiffin deferred more to his general manager, Lindsey, than he did with Clement. He did not like that there were at least a couple of times that I'm aware of, and perhaps more, that kids were offered and believed that they had scholarships and had those scholarships pulled late in the process. And when Clement said, hey, you need to be the one, coach, referring to Kiffin, that makes those calls to the high school coaches to smooth those waters over, Kiffin has a tendency, I'm told, to defer to people on his staff. Hey, call, handle it, tell them. And Clement said, no, I don't want to be that guy. I'm not the guy for that. That's you. And it's my understanding that at that point, and I've heard different iterations of how this happened, but I've heard the basic message as the same. Kiffin said, no, you're right. You're not the guy. You're fired. So it's kind of tense. I don't know where they're going, offensive line. I have no idea. You probably have a much better clue than I do at this point. But the fact is, today's April the 30th, and you're getting ready for this season with a big-time quarterback coming back. Lebby's going to do his job. But I don't think there's any secret now that Lebby probably is looking for the exit sign at the end of this year.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
I think if there was a way they could do an exit sign this afternoon, he would.
I agree. I think
he can. I mean, it's
I
not.
think he would leave today if
he is pissed big time.
Yeah, The people that are trying to spin it like this is normal, it's just not. This is not a. Now, is it salvageable? Sure.
You want to know if there's any chance of an NFL job that could come? I mean, he is irate.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he'll cool down and realize that, you know what, probably there'll be the better time on it.
He's still in a pretty good spot, Chris, because he's highly thought of.
But he's just pissed, and
Well, now you got to bring in a new offensive line coach. You got to get on the same page with him. He and Clement have a really good relationship, but he does have a really good offense. He can turn this into something. And then look, this is not exactly a secret here in Oxford. There are a lot of people who say, look, if Lane Kiffin were to move on quickly, if Lane Kiffin were to leave it, let's say Ole Miss, just for kicks and giggles, Chris, goes 10-2, and Lane Kiffin turns that into, I don't even know, another college job, an NFL job, whatever. There's a lot of people that think, hey, Jeff Lebby in that scenario would have a strong chance to be his replacement as the head coach at Ole Miss, and I tend to agree with that. I know some boosters who are big Lebby fans who wouldn't actually mind seeing that happen. So it's as usual covering Ole Miss. There's some drama here.
Yeah, and here's the thing: it's personalities can be a part of it, but here's the thing with Lane, and I know his dad real well, and I got to know him pretty well through Monty. And it's one of the things that I thought he had learned, and I think he's gotten better, but to take that next step, here's what you've got to do as a head coach. So, like, at USC, they're on probation and all that. All he wanted to do, in his eyes, he was a young guy. He was a play caller, and he was at USC. I'm going to be the play caller. I'm going to design the offense. I'm going to do what's fun, what I like, and all bleep, fell apart there because there was no discipline. He wasn't involved. I don't want to deal with that. Other people deal with that. That's not what a head coach is. Here's why we talk a lot of times about certain guys are really good and go get the next guy. You got to be a leader. Good head coaches are leaders. Nick Saban was a great defensive coordinator. He's a leader, and he does that. So one of the things that when he went to Alabama, I think he learned a little bit of that everybody had a design role, but the buck stopped here, and this is how it flows up, and this is what we do it. Learning that, I think, was a big part of that. Obviously, got a smaller level job, and then now at Ole Miss, and I think he's much more mature and better organized in a lot of that than he was at USC. But it sounds like there's more work that still needs to be done. So,
no question.
On the whole deal of when you can decide in this day and age, in my day, you never went back on an offer of a recruit because you couldn't go back in that high school. We're in a different world. You offer these kids so damn early that, it just comes and goes. It's your job as a head coach to do that. Nick Saban makes those calls and calls the head coach, calls the family and says, this is why we offered Neil. This is what's happened. You can't do that because it shows a lack of leadership. It shows a cowardness, and it affects your ability. Recruiting's not just selling, it's pretty girls and all this stuff. It's about accountability, and it's about leadership. And that is absolutely what he has to do. And I don't think Lane is kind of grew up a little California cool type, I don't want confrontation. That's what you have to do as a head coach. You've got to do that. You can get to a certain point as a play caller, a play designer, create excitement. But if you're going to be a really good head coach, a really elite head coach, you've got to be able to take a stand. And look, there's nothing wrong if he says, as the head coach, this is who we're offering and this is why. And, if they don't see eye to eye, the head coach is the head coach. He's the boss. And if you begin to ruffle the feathers too much of the head coach, you're not going to make it because the head coach is the boss. Like it or not.
Yeah.
He's right, he's wrong, it doesn't matter. He's the boss. Until he's not, he's the boss. But with that, the head coach has to act like the boss. He has to explain it. He has to be clear to it. He has to, do things from the standpoint of this is what we have to do. This is why we're doing it. Be clear, be defined. And then for goodness sakes, in the recruiting sense, you got to pick up the phone and you got to make the call to the parents, to the kid, to the head coach at the high school and explain what you're doing and why. Because it's going to have an effect, and you start to get that reputation of, okay, he doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to deal with that. Well, it's not all about going into the film room and designing your play sheet and ultimately your playbook. Yes, that's what you love to do. That's what you got there. You need to get people to help you. Spurrier was and that's Lane's idol.
Yeah. Yep.
Spurrier was a guy. He liked to play his golf. He liked to design his offense. He didn't care a lot of stuff. But when it came down to a big decision, he might delegate things, but he made the final decision. And when there was a tough phone call that needed to be made, he would do it. And and you got to do that. And that's just a loving,
Listen,
Lane to take that next step. You got to do that, man. You got to do that.
I talked to a couple of people yesterday who kind of know the situation really well, and they both said the same thing. They said, listen, as a play caller, as an offensive designer, Lane Kiffin is elite. I mean, he is, and when I say elite, I mean ultra elite. Like one guy, frankly, who's not a big Lane Kiffin fan, said he might be one of the best 5 who's ever lived. He said, but here's the deal. And you're exactly right. He said he's still a work in progress as a head coach. It's one of the reasons that I sometimes get I almost roll my eyes a little bit with some of the Ole Miss people a little, because I get this question in my mailbag that I do every week, which is Lane Kiffin going to leave? Is he going to leave? Is he going to leave? It's like, hold up. Before anybody at a Alabama or a Georgia or a USC or an Ohio State or whatever hires Lane Kiffin, he has to do two things. He has to win at Ole Miss. Three things. He has to recruit at an elite level at Ole Miss. And he has to prove that he's, for lack of a better term, grown up as a coach. That he's ready to be the head of the program. That he's ready to handle all of the things with the program that he doesn't like. Look,
that's right.
Nick Saban would prefer to never go out and do public stuff. That's not his thing. Nick Saban likes ball. But to be the CEO at Alabama, you got to do more than ball. And sometimes you got to do some things that aren't part of necessarily the machinations of ball. And that's going to be the challenge for Kiffin. And here's the thing. He's only one season in. He's got time. He's at a perfect place for developing like that because he's got a long leash at Ole Miss. But this Clements thing has to be for him. It has to be a lesson. This can't be the kind of thing that you repeat over and over and over, because at some point you won't be able to attract staff if you have that kind of reputation. It wasn't a good moment for him. And I don't know. Look, Clements might be at fault to some degree because this didn't just snap on a Tuesday. This built over time.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No. It don't work that way. You don't get an argument and say you're fired. It happened. Right. Look, I'm going to tell you something. And look, it's kind of the opposite. I mean, like Jeremy Pruitt, just hard to get along with. He just doesn't get along with people, and so Lane's not, to me, and again, I've never worked with him on a staff, but Lane's not that difficult to work with and work for. The guys that are frustrated with him are sometimes just what we're talking about. Okay, do a little bit more, gotta be a little bit more out front, because it's not my place as the fill-in-the-blank assistant coach to do that. That's more of a head coach thing. And, and look, trust me, there's a lot of conflict that gets nipped in the bud at Alabama. A lot of people would, but there's clearly defined, and there is respect. And that's what Lane is, it's often, the thing. And Monty's got a blind spot, but we've talked a little bit about it. And I've told this, and I said, Lane, one time over dinner, I said, you're like an artist. You're very creative. And I said, that's great. You need to keep that, but you need to be a little bit more scientist, a little bit more organized, a little bit more defined, a little bit more based upon certain things. This is what we do, and clearly define things, and not, well, this is what we're going to do. You're right about being a recruiter. So if he says, no, this is what we're going to recruit on and this is what we need to do, and here's why, then the offensive line coach, if he's butting heads with them, then you got to go. I mean, you got to go, but that needs to be. But with that, you've got to take ownership, and if somebody's being offered that shouldn't be, then that's stepping out of line, and that's disorganization, because you don't have it that way. Now, if you all agree that this is who you're going to offer, and then after redoing it, you decide, we made a mistake, we now need to go in this direction, you need to make those phone calls. Again, I said this now for the fourth time. You got to do that as the head coach. And look, there's some things you can do. Other people can call. I think it's fine for the recruiting coordinator, the football ops guy, the people that have a relationship with the kid and the family, and the high school coach and the assistant coach to all call as well as kind of a, man, look, sorry, this is what we think, and this is what, but the head coach has to do it. Because if they do it and the head coach doesn't, that leaves a stain that just is not not what you. It's not how you do business. And I know it's not a fun part of the business. That's the paycheck, though. That's what you get for when you're the head coach.
That's why
Because you know what? If you don't, just go be a high-paid coordinator, and you don't have to deal with that crap somewhere.
Yeah, and there's people that like
that's fine.
The guy at Clemson, the defensive coordinator, whose name escapes me.
Yeah, Brent Venables.
That's what he wants to do. He's like, I want to make a lot of money. I want to coach defense. I'll help with recruiting at the end. That's what I want to do. And hey, you can do that. Here's where Saban has a gift, truly, is Nick Saban's a guy that there's a ton of ego, but there's also a lack of ego at times. He's the guy, and I'm told this from people who've been in those rooms. He has the staff meeting where he gets input from everybody, and he listens. And then he says, okay, I heard everybody. Now, this is what we're going to do, and this is what we're doing. And at that moment, that's what you're doing.
That's it.
Everybody got an opportunity to kind of say what they think, get that out. He listened, and even if he didn't agree with it, he doesn't hold that against you. But at the end of that meeting, everybody walks out of that room going, this is the direction in which we are going, and we start going there right now.
And I think it comes with maturity. I do think, and I've always hoped that maybe this was getting better. Lane had a lot of, he rose up pretty fast where he didn't, he kind of had a lot of leeway. He did work for Pete Carroll. Now, Pete Carroll's another example that, cool, everything's great, and let's get done, and we're going to play our pickup basketball, but you get a lot of work done. And again, Pete made those tough calls when they needed to be done, and he was a good head coach, and Pete was a really good defensive coordinator. He was really a savant on that side of the ball, but he had good leadership. He led differently, but he was the leader. He was the boss, and you do it. And you do learn it. I know that the one time Nick Saban got fired in his career, he was a young coach for Earl Bruce at Ohio State. And they had a bad finish to the season. And Nick was kind of young, and he told me, he says, he and Earl Bruce didn't get along, and he had a different idea how the secondary should be run and how the defense should be gone and all that, and he was speaking up, and he said I was probably a little bit too aggressive and all that, and he and the rest of the defense staff got fired after the bowl game, after Navy torched them and all that. He said, I learned then the boss is the boss, the head coach is the boss. And, you're a young guy, you tend to think you know it all, and then with Lane was a savant. He maybe, a lot of people say born on third base and thought he hit a triple. He really was pretty good as a play caller. But as you move up, again, you have more responsibility. And even as a coordinator, working with your assistants, organizing, coordinating, you can't just – I think he got a lot of success and a lot of money and a lot of titles because of his ability to call plays and design plays. And I think he's kind of – that's what I want to do. That's my comfort level. And – that's what I want to do. But when you become a head coach, it changes. You can do that. Do all of those things, and you can delegate things, but you can't delegate head coach things. You can't delegate, I'm going to make a tough call in the game. I'm going to make a tough call in recruiting. I'm going to make somebody uncomfortable when I have to make this, but I'm going to have to make a tough call. And look, I admire him. He didn't he made a move on the assistant coach. For all I know, he's the boss. You move on. But again, you wonder a little bit about that. But anyway, no, I'm glad we had a chance to talk about it.
Hey, two final last things. Kansas has made a hire. They hired Lance Leipold
yes.
As the coach. And then here's the stat for you as we leave. One of the games Alabama lost. In 2019, Alabama lost to LSU. Listen to the first round NFL.
No.
This is from my friend Ryan Brown at WJOX in Birmingham. Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Jedrick Willis, Devontae Smith, Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy, Alex Leatherwood, Justin Jefferson, Najee Harris, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Mac Jones was standing on the sideline, and he was a 15th pick overall in the first round. That's why when you're at if you're in the SEC West, you look around and you go, boy, you better bring your lunch every day because it is brutal.
No doubt.
Hey, thanks everybody for being with us. I know Chris is going to do another 20 hours of second and third round draft.
Yes, join us tonight, 5:30 Central. We'll take you through second and third round tonight, and Saturday, 10:30 a.m. get going a half an hour before the first pick, takes you 4 through 7. I actually think it's going to even be a better show because they'll take you through a lot of picks with guys you don't know and get you a good feel for what, when, and why. So we'll see where it goes.
All right. So you guys enjoy Chris tonight. Enjoy the draft. Have a great weekend. For Chris, I'm Neil. We'll see you on Tuesday with another edition of SEC Football and Beyond. Take care.